Hello, lovely beings. It's JJ Rose. Hope you are wonderful. I wanted to do an episode about, so, you're spiritual now. Now what? I get this question a lot from people who are coming out of their spiritual awakenings, and there's almost like this moment of disappointment, like, okay, well, I've gone through all this learning, and now what? So here's just a couple little tidbits of advice from myself and seeing so many different people in my lifetime having gone through this process that I think would be beneficial. So the first bit of advice is be a first class you and not a second rate somebody else. And I know that seems like duh, but you would be shocked at the amount of people who come out of a spiritual awakening and they suddenly feel like they have to emulate somebody else who's quote unquote more spiritual than they are, or someone that they look up to in the spiritual world that they want to emulate them. Don't copy someone else. I mean, I know that copying is the best form of flattery, but you can emulate the best parts or of that person or what you really enjoy, maybe, if it feels natural to you. But be you. You're different. You're unique. You're you. You come with your own set of wonderful talents and natural instincts that are going to make you different, and embrace that. Embrace your weird. Now, the second thing is watch your preconceived notions. So a lot of times, depending on content creators you've listened to or whatever your exposure level has been, you're going to have in your mind this preconceived notion of what your spirituality is and what your life is going to be like once you quote unquote attain it. And first and foremost, you're never going to fully attain it. You're on a constant cycle of growth. So that whatever it is to you, kind of look inside yourself and really analyze, okay, is this a benchmark in my life? Or is this when I feel comfortable at a certain level? Or what it is, but give yourself realistic steps in order to obtain your goal. But watch out for the pitfalls of, oh, well, if I don't get to this point or this level, I failed in some way. There is no failure when it comes to this. This is a personal relationship between you and spirit, and you understanding who you are and stepping up and doing the best that you can for yourself and for the world, because whatever you do for yourself impacts the world. Now, the other thing I want to talk about with preconceived notions is it really comes down to whatever your expectation is. So from the smallest minute detail of you get up and you're just in a bad mood and you think everyone is horrible, you're going out in the world with that vibration, and that frequency is being emanated from you to others. So literally you're creating your own reality, and probably for the most part of your day, everyone you encounter is probably going to be horrible to you. Or they're going to show you something horrible, or you're going to go looking for the horrible stuff, i.e. looking at the news or looking for something that validates how you're feeling at that moment. Now, the reason I bring up preconceived notions is I'm going to give you an example of myself. So I had never flown on a plane by myself before, until I was in my late 20s. So every time before I had flown, I was with friends or family, and we always had a good time. And so everyone kind of around us had a good time. But I didn't know that there was this unstated rule that you're supposed to kind of keep to yourself on an airplane and not talk to other people. Very similar to the unspoken rule about an elevator. Apparently on elevators, you're just supposed to get in, be silent, get to your floor, get off. You're not supposed to make small talk with people, etc. Well, I did not know this. So my very first flight that I get on by myself, obviously I'm a little nervous, right? You're in an airport, there's a bunch of people, and everyone's standing in line. And here I am with this lime green suitcase with bright pink polka dots because I didn't want to miss my luggage. So I definitely wasn't going to. But to say it lightly, I stood out, right? So in line, I'm talking to people and people are talking to me. And we get in the terminal, we're waiting for the plane, and more people are talking to me. And I've got kind of, a couple people, and I get on the plane, and the stewardesses and people are talking, and we're waiting on the tarmac. And eventually it gets to the point where now the pilot is standing out with us chatting, and I've got like 5 rows before me and 7 rows behind me, and everyone's just kind of talking, like standing up, having this like group conversation. And I thought that was normal. So all of a sudden the pilot goes, "Oh, I better, get up and fly the plane." And we all laugh, ha ha ha. Okay, everyone get in your seat. And we go through the flight, and it was about a 5 or 6 hour flight. And we get to our desk. But I mean, the whole flight, people were talking. Like people would go to walk back to the bathroom and just kind of stand and chat with me. And I'm thinking this is completely normal. So when I get to my destination and I have a relative come pick me up, I'm in the baggage claim and I'm talking to everyone that I was talking to on the plane because we were all new friends. And my family member rolls up, and as I'm leaving, I'm waving at everyone, "Bye, everyone," all my new friends that I just made. And my family member is laughing hysterically. And I get in the car and I go, "What's so funny?" And they go, "Only you." And I'm looking at them kind of confused, and they go, "Well, don't you know there's kind of like an unwritten rule on planes that no one really ever talks, and, leave it to you to become friends with the whole plane." So, yeah. But that's an example of I had no preconceived notion. I didn't know that there was this, you don't talk to people on a plane, or you're supposed to keep to yourself. So I was just me, and, I'm chatty, and people, for whatever reason, like coming up and talking to me. So that happened. Now, I know for a fact that if I had gotten on that plane with that preconceived notion of you're not supposed to talk to anyone, just everybody mind their own business, that's exactly what would have happened. I wouldn't have had any of those conversations. No one would have been talking to each other. We wouldn't have all had this really fun flight. And again, it's because I didn't have any expectations going in. I didn't, quote unquote, know better. But at the same time, it wasn't like there was anyone upset about what was happening. In reality, most people were really wanting to talk. Now, mind you, this is a very long time ago, and this is way before the pandemic, so life was a bit different back then. But I have the same thing even when I go to the grocery store. If I'm in a good mood, people talk to me, people come up to me, people will say nice things to me. If I'm in a bad mood, or in one of those moods where you just want to go out, get your business done, and come home and not talk to anybody, I have to put on my RBF. You can look that word up if you know what that means. But, or just kind of block myself, because when you are an empath, when you are sensitive, and especially for myself, when you are of the light, people feel that and it resonates with them. And especially now in the world that we live in currently, people are hungry for it, in all honesty, and they will seek you out. Deliberately. They don't know why. I'm nothing special. It's not like I have hair that everyone would comment on or anything. There's really nothing extraordinary about how I look. It's my vibration. It's what I'm emanating. And if I'm happy, if I'm in a good mood, and I'm walking around spreading that light, people feel it. And I've had random strangers come up to me, shopping in a grocery store, and literally come up and just tell me their life story, or something that's going on in their life that's been really bothering them. And I do consider that a gift. I know, there are other people who probably are hearing this going, "Oh dear gosh, I don't want that to happen to me." But you know what? I've learned so much through all these different people telling me things. Some of them I'm like, okay, that was interesting. But other of them, it's just a glimpse into how other people live. And I really, really, really am thankful for that. Now, if you're in a great mood and you're spreading that light, and you go out in the public and people are not receptive to you, it's okay. It doesn't mean you failed. It just means, for whatever reason, you are possibly affecting them with the light, and maybe they're in darkness at that moment, or maybe they're in a bad mood. Typically, your reactions you're getting from people are more about them than they are about you. Now, that being said, self-esteem is something that comes up a lot when I'm doing counseling sessions, between People who are having spiritual awakenings, that tends to be a huge theme of people working on stuff, but also in relationships. So when you have self-esteem issues, automatically you're creating defense mechanisms to try to cover those up, right? Because typically whatever we feel vulnerable or upset about within ourselves, we don't want anyone else knowing about. It's why typically girls who are overweight when they're young will wear really baggy clothes. And my parent would always say, oh, you draw more attention to it by doing that. But in reality, it made me feel better. Like, oh, I could just hide under all these frumpy clothes instead of everyone looking at me and thinking that I'm fat, when in reality, it probably wasn't. That was just my self-esteem issue. So once you work through your different self-esteem issues, and trust me, everyone's got them, and that can be part of your shadow work, but sometimes it's just something you're afflicted with your whole life and you've just got to work with it. You can either accept whatever it is, embrace it, or go make friends and start learning about how other people probably have the same exact self-esteem issue and how they've coped with it or dealt with it. Now, another huge thing that I hear consistently from people coming out of their spiritual awakenings are, oh, I want to help everybody. And we love it. The world loves it. Thank you. We all love your happiness and your joy of going into this really wanting to make an impact and a difference. But there is something called consent. And you also want to make sure that you're not alienating people. So one of my parents used to have a saying that no one likes someone who just got sober or someone who just found religion. And the reason why is because typically when people find something new, like religion or, the 12-step program or sobriety, they want to shove it down everyone's throat. They're super excited. They want to tell everybody about it. And there's a lot of people who aren't receptive. The same thing goes for spirituality. You may not have people in your life who are receptive, who want to hear about your spiritual journey. They're on a different path. They're not there yet. It's not important to them. They don't want to hear about it. Watch, their faces, watch those body movements that they make, like looking at their watch or looking away or tapping their foot or, trying to go and get out of the conversation or trying to change the subject. That's their subtle way of telling you they're not interested in what you're talking about. Now, when you open up to the universe and you say, I am here to work, put me to work, the universe is going to put you to work. Spirit is going to put people in your path, whether you like it or not, to start working. And sometimes it's not exactly what you would want to do, but they're put there for a reason to help show you either what you still need to work on or a different side of yourself that you didn't even know you could do. Now, I bring this up because a lot of times we want to do what we like, right? Like we find a different modality or, we love to meditate. Okay, well, how are you helping the world if you're just sitting there and meditating all the time? You can go, join meditation groups and things like that, or, do a mass meditation or something and better yourself. But if you want to go help the world, it's not necessarily going to be done when you're just sitting there ruminating by yourself, unless you have a lot of self stuff that you need to work on, and that will imbue the world with betterness. So start following what you're drawn to. And for everyone, it's different. And sometimes it's going to be maybe something that interests you. You don't know a lot about it. Start watching videos on it or start, learning about it or buy books. Books are wonderful ways for you to just get in there and start seeing what speaks to you. If you have a spiritual shop in your, city, town, wherever you live, go in there. Not only will you find wonderful books, but you'll also find wonderful people in there too. And sometimes the people that work there have already gone through this and they will really help you guide to a book or to a modality just by a conversation with you. They'll get an instinct of what Spirit's kind of calling to help you. Now, one question that I tend to get a lot from people who have not embarked on the spiritual path, but they almost kind of want to like taunt or question is, why do bad things happen to good people? So when you're embarking on this journey, I do ask you to really have that question sorted out within yourself before you go start stammering and trying to talk to people. Because the person who's asking you this question typically is asking it from a place of a lot of pain and a lot of anger. And if they're asking you this, like I said, it's almost like a taunt. Like, all right, let's see if you can dance. And have it secure enough within yourself that you can give an answer, but also I advise don't answer with ego and hostility back, i.e. mirroring. If they're coming at you with hostility, if you can not mirror that back, but instead come at it from a place of being centered in a place of love, and maybe it will open up and you'll be able to have a conversation. Now, if you're asking my opinion on why do bad things happen to good people, I'll tell you there's a couple different things. There's karma, which is just the law of averages, right? You do good, good comes back. You do bad, bad comes back. And then there are those people where you just honestly don't understand why they've had it so hard their whole life. And this is where we get into contracts that were made before they were even born. Growth is the name of the game. This is the whole reason why we're alive. This is the whole reason we're on this planet and we come here veiled, is so that we can learn and talk about learning the hard way. I mean, we are, for the most part, 90% veiled when we come to this planet. The average person, I would say. And, you know, those of us who have peeled back the curtain a bit, you know, it's still not ever going to be 100%, but to the extent that you can, to understand that there are certain things that are predestined. That person's soul chose in advance in order to come here and live this life for whatever the reason, whether it was that soul needed the experience, that soul wanted to be a catalyst for others, that soul needed to do whatever it did to somebody else in order to have that experience to work out something maybe from a past life. But again, it all comes down to growth. And being that everything in our lifetimes is about growth, not only for ourselves, but for others, make a difference every day in every way. And sometimes making a difference is just you getting up and brushing your hair, or you getting up out of bed and taking a shower, depending on what you're fighting. And sometimes making a difference is going out there and being a little ray of sunshine for everyone. Sometimes making a difference is something else, depending on the path that you've taken. And I'm not here to judge. I'm not judging anyone. If someone has chose a darker path, that is your call, not mine. And I believe that there's a reason. That being said, I'm actually going to read something that was a channeling years ago, almost 50 years ago at this point. But it hit me in such a profound way that I really felt like sharing that. I'm probably going to butcher this word, but please don't judge me for it. Concomitant is a phenomenon that naturally accompanies or connects or follows something. Okay? So that's the main word that this is going to start out with. So I commence in reading. The concomitant awareness may seem to be blind, but it is not. As each increment adds its particle to the prior ones in accretion, the eventuality will be full knowledge and awareness, solidly built and unshakable. To employ this specific way of growth or unfoldment and awareness calls for solid trust, a faith invincible. Notice I did not say unshakable, for it will be shaken and turned in every way, but it will return invincible. Think not this is the why of your testing fures and all subsequent variants and facets in your life. It must be known you can stand in all levels of your being. If at any time you left your integrity or knowing self of the way and the law, you would fail. If weakened once in sickness or dark attack, or in good health or principle, you would fail. I am aware of when your weakest times are, and so I place you in tests apropos to the weakness, illness, or whatever without mercy. You nor I can be weak. Kindness, gentleness is well in its place, but at point it must be put aside. Thus you are hit and hit that every intolerable thing you dislike or gaze upon is placed upon you to see, to deal with, and to walk through. Even now, at the pressure of telephone calls and interruptions, you are placed here to test concentration. Do not linger, do not long for things. Act, move, be decisive. Put into action the principles learned. Have a ready hand, a keen mind, and fleet foot. Be ready to move, feign, dodge, thrust, receive, surge, fight, retreat at the explicit moment necessary. I command you so. I am authority in charge of your progressions. I watch, I judge, I implement, consummate, and develop. As a musician plays a symphony or craftsman creates a fine musical instrument, it must be of the finest material, the most minute detail, softest finish, yet hard and durable. It must produce the most perfect resonance. The melody must sing, yet carry power and full clarity of lower notes, sharps and flats. All must be able to fulfill through it. And that is the outcome if you have the guts. And that right there is the meaning of life and growth.